All right, so I'm gonna try to explain the geocentric flat Earth model, enclosed universe. So it's not, there is no outer space in the way we've been taught. It doesn't work that way. We are inside of an enclosed system. We live on a topographical, meaning it has texture, level surface inside of an enclosure. Within that enclosure, all of the celestial bodies exist. So your sun, your moon, what they call galaxies, what they call planets, what they call the Milky Way, which is the Great Rift and always has been called the Great Rift until the heliocentric model, are all inside of the enclosure. Outside of the enclosure, which I haven't gotten this far with the model yet, but I will, would be water everywhere. There would be water everywhere, above, below, everywhere. You got the foundations of the earth, and underneath, we'll get to that later when I finish that part of the model. Haven't finished that part of the model yet. We'll get there later. This is a biblical cosmological model that fits the scriptures. Any pastor, teacher, preacher, so-called believer in the scriptures that teaches a spherical, wobbling, tilted, corkscrewing, pear-shaped, magical ball in space with sticky, bendy water is not reading the scriptures, because they don't teach that. They literally teach a flat earth, enclosed universe. So the surface of the earth is level, it's topographical, obviously has mountains, valleys, oceans, ups and downs, stuff like that. But overall, across the surface, it would be considered level. All right, so we have the level earth, we have the sun, the moon, what they call galaxies, nebulas, what they call the Milky Way, which is the Great Rift, what they call planets, which are just wandering stars, and then you have all the other stars inside, right? So there would be a superfluid layer in here. And that superfluid layer, I believe, would begin somewhere around 75 miles high. Now, does that mean it just starts at 75 miles high? No. But the transition of our zone of air and gaseous layer, starts to transition from that air gaseous layer to a superfluid layer. Superfluids, look them up. When you say fluid, people start thinking it's water. It's not water. It's not a solid. It's not a gas. It's a state in between. And a superfluid is considered to have what they call zero viscosity, which, interesting, they say zero gravity. And in a superfluid, there would be zero viscosity, meaning no impedance to yourself or any object moving through the superfluid. There would be no friction, no impedance, no resistance. So the superfluid layer would start. In where that superfluid layer starts, from there up is where all the celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, the so-called galaxies, I don't believe that's what they are. Nebula, don't believe that's what they are. The Great Rift, which they call an arm of the Milky Way, don't believe that's what it is. Wandering stars and stars would all be in that superfluid layer. All right, so you have the level surface, you have the enclosure, you have a superfluid, and then you have all the celestial bodies in that superfluid. Now, how the sun and moon are formed, or what are they in the geocentric model? Get that question a lot. Well, what's the sun? What's the moon? All right, so the level surface is the block wall, B-L-O-C-H, wall. Every toroidal field, magnetic field, has a block wall, a level plane of inertia through the center of it, right? So that would be our level surface, the block wall of our toroidal field. This is the top half of the toroidal field. The bottom half would be down here. Again, we'll get to the bottom later once I finish the model. All right, so we live on the block wall of the magnetic toroidal field. And everything else, as far as the celestial bodies, are in the superfluid above us. The celestial dome is the container. That's how we have gas pressure. We have a container. Now, the sun and moon move around magnetic north. They do that because of the magnetic toroidal field. It actually moves the light through the superfluid. So the ether wind, ether drift, which is present, the ether is throughout everything. The space between me and this camera right now, where I'm waving my hand, that there's ether here. This is all ether. This is not empty space. This is ether. It's everywhere. It's in the water. It's in the air. It's in the superfluid. It's in the dome. It's in the toroidal field. The ether permeates everything. Now, back to what the sun and moon are. I believe within this model, the sun and moon are projected focal points of light, a positive and a negative, or a charge and a discharge. People would argue there's no such thing as positive or negative, there's just charge and discharge. I tend to agree with that, but for the sake of conversation, we'll say positive and negative. All right, so the suns are positive, the moons are negative. Where do they come from? Well, the Earth's surface is putting off invisible electromagnetic radiation, energy coming up from the surface. So all of this energy from the level surface, the block wall, is coming upwards. And then it's collimating, because the dome collimates it to a central point, an apex, and then refracts it. And it refracts into 2 points of light. The positive and the negative are sun and moon. So the sun is a projected focal point of positive light that is caused by the electromagnetic radiation, invisible energy of Earth coming up from the surface, collimating at the apex, refracting back down in invisible light until it hits its layer of helium, most likely in the superfluid. It's superfluid layer of helium. And when that focused invisible energy hits that layer of superfluid helium, it excites, because it's ionized, it's super ionized, and creates visible light. That's how light's created. It has to have a container, it needs a medium, and it needs an electromagnetic charge. That's what the sun is. It's not a burning ball of gas in the vacuum of space. It's a projected focal point of light in the helium superfluid layer within the celestial dome. The moon is a negative projected focal point of light from the same source of Earth's energy coming up, collimating at the dome, being split to positive and negative, and then when it hits its superfluid layer, whether that's krypton, I believe it's krypton, it could be another type of superfluid noble gas, ionized noble gas, but I believe it would probably most likely be the krypton layer of superfluid. And then you get the moon. So the sun and moon are projected focal points, positive and negative, of Earth's energy coming up, collimating, splitting to positive and negative, sent back down in invisible focused beams of energy until they hit their superfluids. When they hit their superfluid layer, that energy excites and creates light. Therefore, we have the light to rule the day and the light to rule the night. The interesting thing about the moon is, because it's only, I think it's like only a seventh of the amount of light that the sun gives, and it is a negative charged field, it acts like a photosensitive film. Like krypton is used in MRI imaging, and silver is used in X-ray imaging. Both of those elements have been associated with the moon throughout history. Silver and krypton. All right, so the moon carries two images in its surface. It's not a reflection of Earth's surface off of the dome. It is actually a photosensitive light source that carries an MRI image of the dome, the celestial dome, and an X-ray image of the lands beneath. So all that texture you see on the moon is two overlaid images in its photosensitive surface. An MRI image of the dome and an X-ray image of the lands. That explains the sun and moon in the geocentric model, and there's science fits this. Like all the science of optics fits what I just said. It can literally happen this way. So saying, oh, this is crazy made up stuff, no, it's not. If you study optics and you work in optics and you play with optics, just like Isaac Newton and many others have done, except now we have a lot more technology and just cooler stuff to do it with, and I enjoy playing with this stuff. So that explains your sun and moon. That's what the sun and moon are in the geocentric model. Now, could they come from outside? Could they be a projection from outside and work the same way? Yes, I believe they could. Personally, I believe they're all coming from within. I believe the reason why they were made on the fourth day is each day that he made stuff, the electromagnetic energy got stronger and stronger and stronger until the fourth day it was so strong that he split it off into positive and negative, and it was strong enough to make the sun and moon at that point. That's my theory. All right, so, and then the superfluid also answers equipotential lines, horizontal equipotential lines of voltage. For that to happen, which we know it does, we know we have this on the Earth, you have to have a level floor and a level ceiling. They're called Gaussian surfaces. So you need two Gaussian surfaces to have equipotential lines of voltage. Well, the superfluid ceiling would give us that level surface above us, and our level floor would give us the level surface below us, which gives us the two Gaussian surfaces and allows for the equipotential lines of voltage, the horizontal equipotential lines of voltage. This model fits everything. Everything. The great year cycle, the seasons, the time zones, everything. There's nothing you can throw at this model that it doesn't fit. All right, so as far as that goes, we've discussed what the sun and the moon are. Now, what the wandering stars or planets are, I don't know. I would say they are focal points of light, just like the sun. In the same sense, they're being created basically the same way. There's probably a little bit of difference. They may be actually being created in other ways. There's other ways it could happen. And that's one of the beauties of this model too, is it doesn't all have to be exactly one way. There's multiple ways this could work. I'm offering what I think is the best scientific explanation for it, but it could work multiple ways. Now, as far as the sun and the moon, in this scenario, they are not spherical. They would be concave. Both would be concave at their surface. Now, they would have an anatomy, but at their visible surface, what we physically see, which is just the disk of the moon and the disk of the sun. They even call it the sun disk. So the visible light that we see would be concave facing us. If we're looking up at it, we're looking into its concave structure. So it'd be like a contact lens in a sense. Now, is that the totality of the anatomy of the sun and moon? No, that's just the visible part. They're also toroidal fields. Everything is a toroidal field. The atom, or the smallest molecule, whatever people want to call it, which the atom was considered the smallest, but now there's others that are considered smaller, but everything is a toroid field. So let's just say atom, to be safe, or for the sake of conversation, an atom is not like a solar system like they've shown us. It's a toroid. It's a toroidal field. Everything is a toroidal field. The sun is its own toroidal field. That toroidal field is its anatomy. The focal point, the sun disk that we see, is the only visible portion of it that we see. Now, there's a lot to the anatomy of the sun and the anatomy of the moon, but I'm trying to give a quick, simple explanation in very basic, simple terms. So hopefully this kind of explains the model to some degree. I'm hoping to get better at explaining it over time, and the more I build it and the more I develop it, the more I can explain it. But eventually I'll be able to submerge this in water once I build it correctly and mimic Noah's flood. I'll be able to mimic tides. And once I get to a point where I can figure out how to get all these celestial bodies rotating, then you'll see the rotation. It's all gonna fit. It all fits. So it's time to stop saying the flat earth model is stupid, because it's not. The globe earth model is stupid, and unfortunately we believed it because we were kids when we were told it. There's no evidence for it. All of science disagrees with it. Gravity is no longer a force. It's been thrown out. It is considered the bending and warping of space-time, which is a concept and can't be proven. So all of physics is at a loss for what gravity actually is. If you just study the science, and these so-called brilliant minds like Einstein and Newton and Galileo and Kepler and Copernicus and Eratosthenes and all these names that you've heard that you know nothing about, but you use their names because you've heard their names and you know their names, they all admit you can't prove the earth is moving with any optical experiment from the earth. That it's impossible to prove it's moving. And then in all cases, we can treat the earth as if it's not moving and as if it's the center of the universe, which we do. We treat it that way in everything we do. All of technology, the way we build stuff, the way we fly planes, the way we look at the celestial bodies, everything. We treat the earth as it's stationary and at the center, which is what the Bible says. It says it's stationary and at the center. Now, it has to be enclosed too, because the second law of thermodynamics, which is the law of entropy, but to simplify it, it just means to reach equilibrium, basically. So if you have a vacuum chamber and you remove the lid from that vacuum chamber, all the air is going to rush and fill that chamber, because you sucked all the air out of it to start with. You remove the lid, all the air rushes back in. That's called seeking equilibrium. All right? So if we did not have a container, we could not have a gas pressure system, which we obviously have. You can't have gas pressure next to a near perfect vacuum. It would equilibrize and there would be no life. I could go on and on and on and on and on about why the globe is stupid, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to show that we do have a model. Has anybody put out a physical model yet? Little clips here and there, little tiny renditions of models. Nothing to large enough or to scale enough for people to really get a good visual on. This model is nowhere near finished, but I'm working my tail off on it every chance I get when I'm not busy with my business and doing all my other extracurricular activities like astronomy, watching the sun, tracking the moon, going to places to do these things, flying to do these observations of solar and lunar eclipses, setting up experiments and demonstrations. When I'm not doing all that, I'm working on the model. And I'm going to get it finished, but hopefully this clears up some stuff, gives some people some insight, answers some questions about things. And I appreciate you guys listening. Jeremiah 33:3 and John 3:16 and 17. Look them up. God bless.